Live and local with coverage you can count on. This is WNEM TV5 News at 7 on My 5.
In the midst of all of this crisis, I must tell you that I believe that I have been unjustly persecuted.
Former Flint Emergency Manager Darnell testifying before a congressional committee in Washington, D.C. today. Now, Early has drawn criticism in the last month after initially refusing to testify on the Flint water crisis.
But after a subpoena and threat of U.S. Marshals, the former EFM of Flint had a change of heart.
That's right. TV5's Gino Vici has more.
Well, Darnell Early did address why he chose not to show up when originally invited to testify. His response, simply, he wasn't ready.
Know that I am sad and that I am very, very deeply hurt by what has happened on my watch as emergency manager.
He's held many titles over many decades working in the public sector, from his duties as city manager here in Saginaw to his latest stint as emergency manager for Detroit Public Schools. But Darnell Early will likely be most remembered for the job he held in between, emergency manager of Flint. Today on Capitol Hill, Early, alongside former Flint Mayor Dayne Walling and EPA Administrator Susan Hedman, testified in front of the House Oversight Committee about their role in the Flint water crisis. Early pushed back right from the start, stating he did nothing wrong. In fact, Early says he voiced his concerns about the water early and often.
But after 2 of those boil water advisories, I began to feel that we were not getting to the heart of the issue and had asked that we bring in a separate water consulting authority, the Viola National Group, to take a look at this and find out what was going on. Even in their analysis, there was no mention of the lead leaching into the water.
The former emergency manager of Flint also pointed out Flint's water did not become contaminated with lead on his watch.
The lead issue surfaced after I completed my term as emergency manager in January of 2015.
And according to Early, in the end, and even though he was appointed by the state, Early insisted it was another state agency and the federal government that screwed up.
As we all know, we were grossly misled by the experts at MDEQ and EPA. And while I don't have any great pride in knowing that, I do think it is important because not only does the city of Flint depend on the regulatory agencies, but every city in the state of Michigan as well as the United States of America.
Lawmakers did not press Early on why he chose not to show up when initially invited to testify, but they did repeatedly press him about whether or not he did enough once Flint's water crisis began. Reporting in the newsroom, Gino Vici, WNEM TV5 News at 7 on My 5.
And former Flint Mayor Dayne Walling testified before the congressional committee as well. Walling recalled his time as mayor and says based on his experience, 3 things contributed to the water crisis.
1, Michigan's financial manager system focused too much on cutting costs without adequate safeguards and transparency. The regulators provided false assurances to us about the safety of the water and withheld risks. And 3rd, Governor Snyder unfortunately discounted local concerns and did not act with urgency.
Now, many in Flint have been waiting more than a month since the first congressional hearing to hear Early and Walling speak about the water crisis. But was it good enough? TV5's Ronnie Duncan has your reaction.
We're coming to you from a site in which we watched the great hearing that happened today. It's Tommy Z's Flint Original Coney Island. But see, on the lunch menu today was all about the hearings, more like a boxing match. Yes, nobody threw any punches, but there were a few jabs thrown. And even though there were no knockdowns, there were some breakdowns. Because eventually, somebody has to answer for what has happened in the city of Flint. And somebody's got to pay the price.
They should be prosecuted for what they did.
Someone knew about this and let it go, and the people are now suffering from lead poisoning they got. It's definitely a crime.
No shortage of opinion, no shortage of emotion from people watching some of the Capitol Hill hearings during lunchtime at the original Coney Island off Court Street in Flint.
I don't know who's responsible for what because it keeps on a recurring basis every day. There's a new development and some new disclosures. I think we got to wait till see what all that happens.
As the blame game plays out in Washington, Tom C. Zelarowski was pointing fingers at all the bottled water his business must use because of the ongoing crisis.
I hear a lot of things from the customer. I feel they're talking because I'm losing business.
People here watch closely. whether it was former Mayor Dayne Walling testifying or former financial manager Darnell or officials from the EPA. On the home front, everyone has a viewpoint, but one common theme continues to come out.
It's a criminal crime that someone should be prosecuted for it.
We don't know who it is. I hope they find out who it is. You should never change the water in one thing.
And looking at this as a boxing match, you can say that today's hearings was more like the preliminary, because the main event is later in the week when the governor gets a chance to testify. And Flint, at Tommy Z's, Ronnie Duncan, WNEM TV5 News at 7 on My 5.
All right, Ronnie, thank you. And stay with TV5 for continuing coverage on the congressional hearings. As Ronnie mentioned, Governor Snyder will testify on Thursday, and count on TV5 for complete coverage. And you heard today's testimony first on WNEM.com and our mobile app. You can see extended excerpts from today's hearing on our website.
And today is also the first of many hearings for lawmakers looking into the Flint water crisis. The committee met in Lansing today, looking at how the problem occurred and a solution for the people of Flint. TV5's Faith Gantner reports.
The state legislative task force looking into the Flint water crisis met today in Lansing for the first time.
We really need to get answers about what happened, the failings, and how going forward this never happens again.
The Joint Committee heard testimony from the Auditor General, Doug Ringler. His office audited the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality's handling of the Flint water crisis. It found that the MDEQ's oversight was not sufficient, but Ringler also added that regulations pertaining to the handling of lead pipes also failed to prevent the problems in Flint.
We just felt like the criteria wasn't as comprehensive or sufficient as it could have been, and we think that it helped to contribute to the circumstance.
Committee members pointed out shortcomings in the audit, asking why Ringler's office didn't examine emails pointing to other red flags, including problems with E. coli and Legionella in the water.
That's a weakness in your audit, and I would suggest in the future that those types of opportunities should be looked at as well, because I think all of these things were bells being rung to indicate that there was a problem.
Some Flint residents came to Lansing today to watch the hearings. They say there's still a long way to go, but starting to see people held accountable is a step in the right direction.
It feels great. We're like, yes, we've been saying this all along, and here it is in black and white, and you get this bad feeling in your stomach. You're like, oh my God, they actually did it. But then you're like, yeah, we knew it, and now they have to face what they've done.
Flint mom Melissa Mays was a whistleblower as problems with the water evolved. She says she wants to see the committee question the MDEQ. So far, lawmakers haven't announced who they'll ask next to testify. Reporting from the Capitol, Faith Gantner, WNEM TV5 News at 7 on My 5.
And the committee is expected to hold at least one hearing in the city of Flint. Stay with TV5 for continuing coverage on air, online, and on your mobile device.
A man arrested in connection to the death of a 10-month-old girl over the weekend was arraigned on charges today.
An autopsy ruled the girl's death a homicide, leading to the charge of murder.
TV5's James Felton has more on this tragic crime.
Authorities tell us little 10-month-old Sienna was strangled.
Obviously, we're devastated. This is a terrible situation. Our heart is broken.
Dealing with the loss of a child is hard. It's even worse when authorities tell you she was murdered. That's exactly what Dara Petrowski and her family are going through tonight as they mourn the loss of their cousin. Police say this man, Michael Lask, strangled 10-month-old Sienna McCliggett Saturday here at Sleepy's Inn in Thomas Township.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. She's young. She's a baby. She's 10 months old.
Today, Lask was charged with open murder. He faces life in prison if convicted. But right now, all Petrowski can think about is the sudden death of her cousin.
She was happy. She was smiley. She loved her siblings. And she just was a happy baby.
Meanwhile, Saginaw County Sheriff Bill Federspiel tells us working cases like these take a toll on his department.
Not only to be there at the scene, but to go to an autopsy of a 10-month-old child. It is extremely difficult.
Investigators say Lask, who was dating the baby's mother, was left alone in the motel room with Sienna. A short time later, they say Lask called 911 and told a dispatcher his baby wasn't breathing.
Couldn't walk, couldn't speak for herself, and expects us to do that for her. And that is why our job has become extremely focused as the importance of what we do in a case like this.
And while Federspiel is seeking justice, Piotrowski wants to see Lask put away for a long time.
He's terrible. He's a terrible individual. It's terrible.
A GoFundMe page has been set up for Sienna. You can get a link to it at our hot links section on WNEM.com. Reporting in the Continuous News Center for WNEM TV 5 News at 7 on My 5, I'm James Felton.
Well, cloudy and gloomy skies over mid-Michigan this evening, and we could be in for some rumbles of thunder during the overnight hours. Now here's our meteorologist, Chris Easlick, with a look at your forecast. Hi, Chris, what's going on?
Hi there, Colette. We do have rain moving into the area tonight, but as far as that is concerned, we're going to see that move in during the overnight hours. We do have rain to our west that looks like it's trying to push into the area, but that's not going to occur for us until after midnight. That's all thanks to an area of low pressure that's currently in the plains or moving out of the plains towards our area. And again, we have some rain on the way, but a few rumbles of thunder might be mixed in. So here's kind of how things are going to shake out. We won't see the rain move in until after midnight tonight. Temperatures will remain mild throughout the evening, and that rain chance holds all the way through the afternoon tomorrow. But as far as tonight goes, we'll remain dry and temperatures not too bad outside. Light jacket, sweatshirt, that's all you'll need this evening. Should be a good night out on the town. Now, as far as your winds tonight, they are out of the east, so areas closer to the lakeshore were much colder. Water over the Saginaw Bay and Lake Huron still very cold for this time of year, and that will continue to hold temperatures down there, at least for the next couple of months or so. Now, as far as winds are concerned, we'll see some gusty winds tonight in any of those stronger storms. However, tomorrow afternoon, that's when the wind's really going to ramp up, wind gusts sustained near about 45 miles an hour at times. So rain moves in overnight. A few rumbles of thunder are possible, and a strong storm or two also with gusty winds, and small hail is the main threat with that. Full forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Chris, thank you. A local group is urging faster action when it comes to replacing lead water lines in Flint.
That's right, and they're taking matters into their own hands to do it.
And if you have a tough question you'd like us to investigate, just give us a call at either of the two numbers right there on your screen. You can also send an email or get a hold of us on Facebook.